tomorrow, no, I would not necessarily.
Thank you. We got your point. So can I ask you a question now? Do you mind coming down so that we can have a discussion?
I prefer to stay up here so that more.
Because you have an advantage like that.
You have advantage,
Yeah, you have an advantage like that.
Let's discussion now. You need to come down.
To watch his speech.
Okay.
Adnan Rashid, who I've spoken with before, would like to have a discussion with me, and so he's worried that I might shout over him or something.
Yeah.
But I want the whole crowd, if I'm being unfair and shouting over Adnan Rashid and interrupting his time to talk, I want you to go against me and say boo and all that sort of thing. So I'll try and be as fair as possible.
You're making a statement. Islam is false.
Yes.
Right. And having had discussions with you in the past, I believe you are an atheist. Is that correct?
No, I am agnostic.
You are agnostic. Okay. So you don't believe in a God. You don't have enough evidence to believe in God. Right. Yet.
Yeah, I'm not convinced there is a God.
Okay, good. Now, in order to claim that Islam is false, you have to explain. You have to define false. What is false to you?
Yes. So
what is false to you?
Okay. So
He's the speaker.
Adnan Rashid has only arrived just now, and he is asking on what basis. I'm paraphrasing you a little bit. Adnan Rashid is asking, on what basis am I saying that Islam is false? I already did this, as other people who have been in the crowd for a while.
I want you to define false. Definition. You're claiming Islam is false. Islam, we know what it is.
Okay.
Islam is the faith followed by 2 billion people on the planet, and they believe there is only one God and Muhammad is his last messenger. That's Islam.
I think it's 1 billion.
Okay, yeah. It's nearly 2 billion. As much as you dislike it, but it's 2 billion. Okay, Islam is false. Can you define what false is? Because we want to know. We know Islam. We don't know what false is.
Okay, good. I've been asked to define what is false.
Yeah.
Okay. I believe that everyone has an idea of what false is, but I will define this anyway.
No.
False is that which is inaccurate, that which is not the case, that which is illogical.
Okay, define accurate.
Accurate is quite a hard thing to define.
I'm sure it is.
If something is not accurate, then like what that thing is stating is not true. So it is hard to if you have
define true.
So if you have a
define true.
If you have a non-axiomatic definition of truth, I would like to hear it.
You're the one making the claim. Islam is false. That's a claim. So that's why I'm asking you a question. Define false. You said something not true. Something inaccurate. Then I asked you to define accurate. You can't do it. Then I'm asking you to define true, because you said anything not true is inaccurate. Now, can you define true? Once we have a definition of true, then we can get somewhere and see whether Islam is false or not.
Okay.
What is true? This is a logical discussion.
Yeah. Things that are true are that which are the case.
And define case.
So, I really want this to go somewhere sooner.
The point I'm trying to make here is, as an agnostic, you have no definitions. That's the point I'm trying to lead to. As an agnostic, you can never claim anything to be false. Let me explain. Because to you, truth, accuracy, or what other word did you use?
That which is not the case. That which is
case,
illogical.
whatever it is, whatever words you use are all relative to you. Okay, their meaning changes from person to person, from time to time, from place to place. To us, that's not the case. We have a static definition of accurate. We have a static definition of true. You cannot give me a definition that is contingent upon something tangible, something true in itself.
Anything tangible.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's only your belief.
So,
no problem. Maybe you can
Rashid
take his place. You want to take his place?
Adnan Rashid has claimed that because I am agnostic, therefore truth to me must be relative.
Yes.
That is not true. That is nonsense. Because
so can you define true and nonsense?
We can give an example of truth.
Can you define something you're talking about?
Examples of truth in mathematics.
No, it's in a logical discussion. Those who know logic, they know exactly what I'm talking about.
In order to derive mathematics and logic, at no point have we had to assume that God exists. So I'm afraid
I'm not even talking about that.
You're talking gobbledygook.
I'm not talking about God's existence.
You are, because you have claimed that no agnostic can believe anything to be absolutely true.
Yes.
And yet,
yes.
And yet, mathematics does not assume that God exists in order for it to be real. And so, like, I'm afraid
God is not a question of mathematics. God is not a question of
But it's an
mathematics.
example of things that are true.
Right.
And you're claiming that there's no such thing as true.
But can you
unless
define?
assume
Can you
that there is
define
God.
true? Can you define? Can you give me a definition of true or truth?
I could probably look one up from a logic.
So
I could look up
until
a
you look it up.
definition.
Until you look it up, take this down, and when you've looked it up, come back and then pick it up and then explain to us what you mean by true or false. Islam is false. You're making a claim standing there, not knowing what it means.
I think
You need to go home, look in the dictionary, look at the definitions of true and false, and come back and then talk to me.
I would say
Yeah,
Islam
I
is
think everyone's gonna
You can take his place. You want to take his place? Anyone who wants to talk to me, take his place.
I think everyone can understand how ridiculous.
So my point is, ladies and gentlemen,
excuse me, if you want to talk to someone else,
atheists,
can you leave?
agnostics have no legs to stand on in the sense, I know you don't like it. I know you don't like it. You don't like my freedom of speech? You don't like my freedom to talk?
In the last 5 minutes,
I have the
you're
freedom.
not into discussion one bit, but you haven't got a heart to discuss.
Come to the ladder. Come to the ladder.
Can you define truth?
Over everything.
Can you help
Come to the
him?
ladder.
Is this
If you
is this
discuss
the
it,
only
you
way?
listen for a
Adnan,
couple of
I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. Can you ask your friend or my friend here to explain what false is or what true is? I want definitions.
Don't interrupt him.
Okay.
Okay, I won't interrupt you. You have 2 minutes 120 seconds to define false or define true.
Okay. So Adnan is claiming that because I'm agnostic, kind of my understanding of truth must be relative and subjective. That unless you believe in God, you cannot believe in things that are absolutely true or absolutely
Straw
false.
man.
I can prove that this is false. I can give a clear counterexample of something that is objectively absolutely false and absolutely true.
Not answering my question.
Without assuming the existence of God. And these examples
Straw man
are
again.
numerous. They exist within mathematics.
Straw man
So,
again.
In mathematics, is it true that within kind of Euclidean geometry, the interior angles of a triangle
Straw manning all
add
the
up
way.
to 180 degrees? Yes, that is objectively true. Notice, everyone, that at no point have we had to assume the existence of a God for this to be true.
Again, straw man.
So, like, Adnan, you're wasting our time. We're not interested in this wank. This is just masturbation. If you want
No one's, to my knowledge,
if you want to talk about
define masturbation.
Adnan wants to talk about what masturbation
Or
is.
define wanking.
I don't think he wants to talk about the Quran.
Every word means something. Do you all agree? Every word means something. So stop using terms without defining them. Can you tell us? No, because in a discussion, in an intelligent discussion, when you make claims, you must qualify your claims. Okay, in order to qualify this claim, he must define his terms.
Who wants to have a discussion about the flaws within
He
the
couldn't give the document he's
scripture of the
talking
Quran? And who wants to have a discussion?
I'm here. I want to talk. It seems you have had enough of me.
Yeah, who wants to have a discussion about the flaws within the Quran?
Me. I want.
Within the Quran.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I bring you a clear-cut error in the Quran,
Yes.
you will try and defend it.
Okay. Before you do that, can you define error? You guys are laughing, but this is what it is. This is the crux of the matter. Can you define error? Give me a definition of error.
I've shown you that error is
I know what Quran is. I know what Quran is. Quran is that book in his hand. We know the definition.
Okay.
It's there. What is
I
error?
don't want everyone here to be bored.
Are you bored? Are you bored? They're not bored. They're actually not bored. This is quite entertaining.
No, we're going to do this properly. We want democracy. We want two groups of people to raise their hands, and whoever has more, I will proceed in that vein. Okay? So, who wants to hear a specific error within the Quran and Quranic scripture?
We all do.
Okay.
We all do. All of us do. So you win. You win. You win. You win. You can give us an error. Can you define? Okay.
I'll tell you the error.
Now apply another democracy. Another vote. In other words, who wants a definition of an error? Who wants? Almost everyone.
Minority.
Okay.
That's 5
So
people. So I'm going to give you a real error, and
Okay.
you're not going to do any more
Can you define-
nonsense or masturbation anymore. Okay. So if you want to hear a real error, here's one.
Can you define masturbation again?
So.
He's talking about things he doesn't know what he's talking about.
So, I'm going to give you a clear-cut error in the Quran, okay?
Please don't define it by doing it.
So, the error is in Surah 4, verses 11 and 12. These are the verses in the Quran which detail how a man should give away his estate, his inheritance, okay? Now, I want you to bear in mind the example of a man who has 2 or more daughters, a mother, a father, and a wife, okay? And listen closely. Allah instructs you concerning your children, for the male, what is equal to the share of 2 females. But if there are only daughters, 2 or more, for them is 2/3 of one's estate, okay? So the Quran is instructing a man
hold on.
to give away 2/3 of his estate to his daughters, okay? And the Quran continues, and for one's parents, to each one of them is 1/6 of his estate if he left children, okay? So now the Quran is instructing very clearly to give away 1/6 of the estate to the mother and 1/6 of the estate to the father. 2/3 plus 1/6 plus 1/6 is equal to 1. That is now 1 out of 1. The whole of the estate has now been given away, okay? But the Quran continues. In verse 12 it says, and for you is half of what your wives leave if they have no child. But if they have a child, for you is 1/4 of what they leave, after any bequest they may have made or debt. And for them, the wives, is 1/4 if you leave no child. But if you leave a child, then for them is 1/8 of what you leave. So the Quran is now saying to give away 1/8 of the estate to the wife, but that adds up to 2/3 for the daughters, 1/6 for the mother, 1/6 for the father, and 1/8 for the wife. How much does that add up to? 9/8, 1 and 1/8. Telling you to give
when you
away
finished?
112.5% of the estate, which is impossible. It is as impossible as if I told you all here today, give away half of your pizza to your brother, half of your pizza to your sister, and half of your pizza to your cousin.
That's not what the Quran is saying.
You can't do that. That is impossible. If I told you to do that, you would say to me, that's wrong. You've made an error. Because that's what is happening. That is what has happened.
Can I come back on
the
it?
Quran, in just a minute, sir.
Okay.
And so, obviously, no hyper-intelligent creator would create a book with simple mathematical mistakes in it.
I agree.
The only explanation is that this book was not created by the hyper-intelligent God of the universe. It was created by a man in the 7th century who was not good at maths and could not add up simple fractions.
Amazing.
And so,
Can we have a round of applause?
This is an error in the Quran. And so,
our man here has found an error in the Quran, which for the last 14 centuries, even the biggest Orientalists, biggest critics of Islam couldn't find. Can you imagine? Wait. The biggest, wait. Now my turn. Our man here has found an error in the Quran, which in the past 14 centuries, the biggest critics of Islam couldn't find. To repeat again, let me explain. He doesn't even understand what the verses are saying. The verses are describing different categories, different situations, people with different number of children and wives. Let me explain. Okay, wait, yes, let me explain. Now that you have understood the Quran better than I have and all the Muslims here, let me ask you a question. According to your understanding of the Quran, as you seem to be a mathematician par excellence, can you now explain to us, if a man has 2 sons, 5 daughters, and 3 wives, according to these verses, how would you distribute the estate? Explain, please. Did you understand my question?
I do understand the question.
Can you now do the mathematics, because you seem to be a mathematician who understands the Quran better than all the critics of Islam? Can you now tell us if a man has 2 sons, 5 daughters, and 3 wives, how does he actually distribute this estate according to these verses?
So, the crowd will have realized that the question Adnan has just asked is not relevant.
Why?
It's a non-sequitur. And the reason why it is a non sequitur is that he is asking me to waste all your time by going through these verses and doing
No.
these-
I'm making a
and
point that
doing-
you don't understand them.
and
You don't understand them. You haven't taken the effort.
I have brought a clear example of an error in these verses, and there is no like.
Yeah, can you answer my question? The audience is asking, can you answer my question? If you cannot answer my question, then you should have the humility to accept that, okay, I will go away, again I will study these verses and come back to you, right? Have you opened, wait.
I can't answer your question.
Can you answer my question honestly? Have you opened one commentary on the Quran to understand these verses?
Yes.
Which one?
Jalalain.
What does it say?
It says, it paraphrases the book.
And what does it say?
It says essentially the same thing.
What does it say?
Essentially the same that I just read out to
What?
you.
Then you haven't read a commentary. Then if it says
I
the same
have.
thing, it's not a commentary.
That's what most commentaries do.
By the way, the commentary he mentioned, the commentary he mentioned is the shortest commentary on the Quran, which literally paraphrases.
I bet I
It
can
actually
find-
explains the meaning of the
I bet I
verses.
can find a short
Right.
commentary.
So
many commentaries
it is
won't actually
clear.
have any commentary on these verses.
Can I have a say as well?
Is it true that there are commentaries that don't actually say anything in verses?
In verses,
Yeah.
I don't know of any commentary that doesn't comment on any verse of the Quran. Every single commentary comments on every single verse of the Quran,
Not
as
true.
far as I know.
that's
Maybe
not
you. How many of? Give me 5 names of commentaries.
Jalalain.
Number 1.
Kathir,
Sorry, which one?
Jalalain, Kathir,
Ibn Kathir.
Ibn Abbas, although it
No,
probably wasn't
it doesn't
that.
exist.
No,
It doesn't
well,
exist.
The one purported to be. from
You have
Ibn
2 so
Abbas.
far.
No, don't.
I'm
be-
waiting for the 3rd.
Don't be obtuse.
I'm waiting for the 3rd.
tafsir that's purported to be from Ibn
I'm
Abbas.
waiting for the 3rd.
Okay, that whoever claims that there is a tafsir which is purported to be from Ibn Abbas.
Okay, here are the names.
And
Jalalain, Ibn Kathir, Zamakhshari, Tabari, Qurtubi, and
there are many more.
the list, Adwa al-Bayan, the list goes on.
Yeah.
There are tons of commentaries, and some of them run into 40, 50 volumes, right? This gentleman here, he made a claim about Islam and the Quran, and he read a paraphrase.
No, I quoted your Quran directly, and I showed how it.
You cannot quote the Quran directly and then give a commentary on it, because you are not a commentator of the Quran. If I was to pick up the English law, for example,
What I'm saying
wait.
agrees with commentary.
If I was, as a layman, if I was to
What
pick
I'm
up,
saying agrees with
wait,
commentaries.
if I was to pick up any book on the English law, the jurisprudence of the English law, and if I was to stand there and say, I think the English law says X and X and X, or Y, without studying any credible commentary on the English law, such as the William Blackstone's commentary on the English law, then you would think I'm a fool for making claims. I would be ignorant to do that, right? So here we have an example of ignorance, which is widespread, which has spread like a disease in this society, where people think they are scholars of Islam, they can talk about Islam without having to study Islam. They would never do that with chemistry. They would never do that with history. They would never do that with neuroscience. They would never do that with biology. With Islam, every Tom, Dick and Harry, a man who is drunk walks out of the pub and he wants to talk about Islam. This doesn't make sense.
What I'm saying agrees with the tafsir.
So
Adnan is mentioning tafsir and is saying that, like, because I'm not an expert in tafsir. By the way,
No, you are not.
For the non-Muslims in the crowd, a tafsir is a commentary by an expert.
I
on
think
the
they know
Quran.
by now.
Okay, and so. Adnan is saying that because I'm not an expert in tafsir.
No, I'm not saying that. I don't expect.
In the Quran.
Don't misrepresent my words.
However,
I don't want
what
you to
am
be an
saying
expert. I know you're not.
agrees with the tafsir. What I'm saying
let's not shout
is
over
in
each other.
perfect harmony with tafsir.
Right.
And the scholarly community.
And you haven't read any.
And yes, I have.
Jalalain.
Yeah, I've
Jalalain is the shortest possible. Yeah, I know you don't like it. I know you don't like it.
wasting all our
Come on,
time.
are you losing your temper now?
Yeah, I am.
Are you losing your temper
You're
now?
wasting our
Am I?
You're wasting our time. Tell us how.
You see,
my interpretation
this is what happens
of
to
this-
people
Tell us
when they
how I'm
claim
wrong.
things about
No, tell
our
us
faith
how I'm
without
wrong.
studying it.
I've
Without
explained
studying it.
what-
Okay?
No, I've
Right
explained
now,
what the
ladies
verse
and
says.
gentlemen, it's
Tell us how
clear
the verse
this
says
gentleman wants to
differently.
shout over me The simple point I made is that
It's his meeting, he can.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Please just talk
Ladies
about
and
the verse.
gentlemen.
Please talk about the verse.
I asked this gentleman a question that he seems to understand these 3 verses he read from the Quran, which he seems to be claiming here, that I understand these 3 verses, therefore they are false. I challenged his understanding by posing a question to show that he clearly doesn't understand these verses. I asked him, if a man has 2 sons, 5 daughters and 3 wives, how would he, according to these 3 verses, distribute his estate, albeit in error? How would he do it? He cannot answer my question.
No. Okay, to clarify,
Can you answer?
I could very easily go to a inheritance calculator, or I could very easily do this. But it is a waste of time. Because doing this does not demonstrate how the argument
Guys,
I have given
we don't want to boo him.
in this verses
That's against our manners.
is incorrect.
Wait, no. We shouldn't
You
boo.
have not shown how my argument is wrong.
He has the right to have his opinion. He has the right. He can be in error.
You're making an irrelevant point. You're diverting.
I'm not.
You're digressing.
I'm not.
You're hiding.
Look.
Please just address the example I have given you. If I am wrong and the example I have
question?
given